Meeting this evening. Before I officially call our city council meeting to order, I wanted to take a couple minutes, not even a couple minutes, just briefly run through our agenda so that everyone would know what's before us this evening. So first I want to say welcome to the Cub Scouts from Pack 4, the Weebillow's Den. Thank you for being here with us this evening. It's always wonderful to have our scouts here with us, and thanks for being here. You're welcome to stay for as much of the meeting as you want. You're also welcome to go whenever you need to go. I know you probably all have other things and get ready for school tomorrow, but thank you for being here with us. I have in front of us this evening a resolution that we'll start with, and then we'll take a brief recess to allow for folks here for the resolution also to greet the council, but also to leave if they would like at that point. We have two public hearings posted for 7:15 and 7:20 that are fairly routine. And then next we'll be going to a presentation from National Grid for an update on a significant project that's been going on in the city, the regional reliability project. And we'll have a chance for councilors to ask some questions about that project as well. We've got some routine business, and then we'll take a break for committee work and be back after that to finish it up. So with that, I'll officially call to order this regular meeting of the Beverly City Council, Monday, October 16th, 7 o'clock p.m. Ms. Kent, will you please call the roll?
Bowen? Here. Crowley?
Here.
Feldman?
Here.
Houseman?
Here.
Rand?
Here.
Rotundo?
Here.
St. Hilaire?
Here.
Sweeney?
Here.
And Flowers.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Kent. As we rise, and I'll ask Councillor Feldman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to ask us to remain standing for a moment of silence, both for the innocent people of Israel and Palestine who are suffering right now, and also very close to home, in memory of Robert King, who was a long-time and much-loved custodian at the Ayers Ryleside School, who died very unexpectedly recently. So I would ask that we hold a moment of silence for him and keep his family in our hearts. Councillor Feldman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councillor Feldman, for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And thank you, everyone, for taking those moments of silence. And again, our hearts and our thoughts go out to Mr. King's family and to the Ayers Ryleside School community as well. Certainly a profound and sudden loss. We'll go right into our agenda. We have a resolution, and Councillor Rotundo, this was filed by you, so I'll invite you to go to the podium and present this. Thank you.
So it's been an honor for me to be able to present this resolution for Nicholas. I've known Nicholas since the days of elementary school. He was a school-age friend of my son, so this brings a lot of meaning to me. This was brought to my attention by his grandparents one day while we were having breakfast, so it gives me pleasure to actually do this. The City Council would like to recognize Nicholas Horrigan for his achievement of being awarded the Massachusetts Annual White Cane Award. Whereas Nicholas, Orientation and Mobility Specialist, nominated him for a Massachusetts Commission for the Blind Annual White Cane Award and was awarded this honor on October 13th, 2023. Whereas the MCB White Cane Award is recognized around the world as a means for identifying and empowering people who are blind and visually impaired. On October 15th, 1964, White Cane Day became a national observation in the United States to celebrate those who are blind and visually impaired. Whereas Nicholas was born to Matt and Renee Horrigan of Beverly Ryleside, July 5th, 2007. His proud grandparents include Beverly residents Rich and Marilyn, Lorraine Cashin of Topsfield, and the late Sergeant Arthur Cashin. Nicholas was joined by his delightful sister Callie in 2010, and this dynamic duo is not to be beaten. Whereas Nicholas's vision issues came to his family's attention on one of his toddler Halloween trick-or-treat nights when he asked to go home because he couldn't see. He also had difficulty retrieving a basketball from a hardwood floor. Subsequent vision testing sent him to Boston Children's Hospital, where it was determined he had retinal dystrophy, 10 degrees of peripheral vision, and night blindness. He began early intervention services through the Perkins School for the Blind, transitioning to Beverly Public Schools, at age 3 with services through the North Shore Consortium and Mass Commission for the Blind. It was anticipated that Nicholas would experience total vision loss by young adulthood. Whereas Nicholas is a whiz kid at orientation and mobility skills, learning to move swiftly and safely through his environment, his mapping skills of the area he travels are unequaled. He is a human GPS. Skill development grew with his age, from using a cane to arranging his own public transportation. There is no stopping him. Whereas a favorite family story is of the day he ran ahead of his grandmother in a parking lot with his cane flying from side to side. She repeatedly asking him to slow down. Finally, she called out, "Nicholas, stop. You're blind, not deaf." The level of confidence and security Nicholas has within himself about his disability. It is still likely that Nicholas will lose his vision, but he is prepared. Whereas he has completed all of the Braille available and has taken advanced courses along with his teacher of the visually impaired. He imagined doing advanced math and Braille. Beverly Public Schools and the Massachusetts Commission, my apologies, have made certain he has every available technological advance to assist him. His teachers and staff are amazing. Whereas during his preschool years, Nicholas developed an intestinal virus that required hospitalization. At this point, chronic kidney disease was discovered. It has been determined that both of Nicholas's disorders are caused by ciliopathy of the FTS140 gene. At the time of the discovery, he was one of 12 known cases in the world. At the height of the COVID pandemic, Nicholas received the gift of life from a very, very dear family friend. Nicholas continues to thrive with his new kidney. Technology is his friend. He has taught himself computer coding and has worked via Mass Commission for a gaming company. He spent this summer working as a retail cashier. He is certified to repair both Apple and PC products. Whereas Nicholas was a kind and giving heart, he and his family volunteer for a Make-A-Wish Massachusetts and Rhode Island Foundation, who previously gave him a trip to the Grand Canyon. He wanted to go while he could see its majestic beauty. He continues to support events for the Riley Rocks Foundation. Riley was Nicholas's friend and classmate. He also honors and loves his life-giving kidney donor, his devoted parents, sisters, and extended family, as well as the community who has supported him so kindly. Now, therefore, be it known that the Beverly City Council wishes to congratulate Nicholas for being awarded the MCB White Cane Award for his hard work, dedication, and kindness, and orders that the city clerk spread a copy of this resolution upon the city records. Madam Chair, I just want to make one other statement that was brought to my attention by his grandparents. This award's only awarded to 2 people in the state, 1 adult and 1 child, so that is even more significant that he was awarded this. So congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you very much, Councilor Rotundo, and congratulations, Nicholas. What an amazing accomplishment, and just thank you for the many ways that you've been involved in the community and all that you've done and are doing. I was remiss in not saying before we did your resolution that also with us is Mayor Mike Cahill. Thank you for being here, Mr. Mayor, as well as our Planning Director, Darlene Nguyen. Thank you for being here, Ms. Nguyen. Very exciting and glad to have the mayor with us as we're honoring you as well, Nicholas. And Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you wanted a chance to say anything as well? A word of congratulations.
Thank you, Madam President. That's a fantastic proclamation. And I would just add that I was able to join Nicholas and his family at the State House last Friday, and we were also, it was a joy to proclaim last Friday, October 13th, as Nicholas Hurricane Day in the city of Beverly, so that will always be his day. So yeah, thanks so much for making the time for this tonight and honoring such a wonderfully young guy. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you again. And And thank you again to Councilor Rotundo for bringing forward the resolution on behalf of the council. I would entertain a motion to officially approve Order 243. That is the resolution we just heard.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0. Congratulations again, Nicholas, and thank you for being here. I would entertain a motion to take a 5-minute recess to allow counselors to greet Nicholas and his family, and also anyone who would like to remain with us for the rest of the meeting, you certainly can. If you'd like to take your chance to exit after that, you also certainly can. So a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll be back in 5 minutes. for bringing forward that resolution on the council's behalf. We have two public hearings that we have posted now. The first is for 7:15. These are both continued from our prior meeting. And so we will pick up first with the posted public hearing on Order 241. This is for National Grid Petition 307-56481 for Elliott Street. I will mention that if there are members of the public here to speak in either of these public hearings, you can sign up using the sheets in front of Ms. Kent, the city clerk, on her desk at any point. I do see we have Michael Kazadi, our National Grid rep, here for this hearing. So Mr. Kazadi, I'll ask if you would come to the podium and if there's anything that you can share with us about this Elliott Street petition.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Kazadi, and I'm representing National Grid at 44 River Street in Beverly. And so we are petitioning to install a stub pole to support the existing power line pulling in the opposite direction at this location.
Thank you, Mr. Kazadi. Are there questions from members of the council on this? Councilor Rotundo.
Because I like to be educated, can you just enlighten me what a stub pole is?
A stub pole is like an anchor pole, pretty much, so it keeps the power line from pulling in the opposite direction. So that's the best I can explain.
No, that's fine. So it's not a wire, it's an actual pole though?
It's an actual pole, yes.
That would
And
be,
then
okay.
we also have a wire coming we have a wire going from pole to pole that keeps it from pulling, I guess, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm not gonna grill you too hard, I just, for my own knowing, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rand?
I have a quick question to follow that up. Is this in the sidewalk?
Yes, sidewalk.
And, no, thank you.
Please.
And I'm sure you what's your process for determining if you're meeting ADA requirements? As in, like, could a wheelchair get past the pole?
So the pole. I'm not really sure about that.
Sorry, Counselor, yes, that's part of the process of the design work. I'm not familiar with this pole in this petition, but that is for a stub pole, it does, as he described, anchors to stabilize the system from any kind of fluctuation, as well as anything that's going into a sidewalk, that is part of the full review to make sure that it is compliant.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. O'Leary, I welcome back to our podium. Could you just state your name for the record as well?
Timothy O'Leary, National Grid.
Thank you. And thank you for stepping up and helping with that. Councilor Rand, any other follow-up on that?
That was it, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the council on this public hearing? Are there any members of the public here who hope to speak in the public hearing on National Grid Petition 307-56481 for Elliott Street? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer that back to the Committee on Public Services to take further action on that this evening. Which brings us right to our 7:20 public hearing, also continued from our prior meeting. This is on Order 242. This is National Grid Petition 307-56481 for County Way. Mr. Kazadi, what would you be able to tell us about this one?
So we are petitioning to install the new pole 422-50 between the existing poles 422 and 423 to minimize our power line span between the two poles.
Sorry, you said to minimize the power line span between the two poles. Okay, thank you. Councilors, are there questions on this one for Mr. Kazadi? Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. I believe this was the poll that we had some questions from neighbors about last time. So I just wanted to confirm that those were addressed in the meantime and see if there was anything else for the council to review.
Thank you, Councilor Bowen. Yes, I think this is one of the ones, Councilor Rotundo, you had some follow-up with the neighbors?
Madam Chair, through you, I did have the opportunity to talk with Faith Hassel, who's sitting there, to investigate this. In fact, what the concern was, the group home that's there, they put a reflector on it. It's a way for them to have a meeting space. It's been assured that that will not be interrupted. I did speak with the group home. a couple of days later, after talking to Faith Hassel, to assure them that will not be affected. So in reality, this should be all be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you, Counselor Bowen, for following up on that. Counselor Rotundo, thank you for following up with our group home residents as well. Are there other questions from the council on this proposal? Are there members of the public here who hope to speak on our public hearing on Council Order 242, National Grid Petition 307-56481 for County Way? Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and refer that as well back to the Committee on Public Services for further action this evening. Thank you, Mr. Kazadi, for being here with us. That brings us to presentations, awards, and memorials, and we do have a presentation this evening scheduled for National Grid, whom the council had invited to come and please offer us an update on the KV 115 Regional Reliability Project. And so I know we have some representatives from National Grid, and I would invite you to either come to the podium or present here from this microphone, whichever is easier in terms of your presentation. And then, councilors, we will have an opportunity to ask questions following the presentation as well. And if you could begin with your names and addresses as you each speak too, for the record. Thank you so much.
Sure. So thank you to the council for inviting us to come back. For anyone who may not remember me or know me, my name is Daniela Ratz. I am the manager of stakeholder management for National Grid in New England. And with me this evening, I have our project manager, Tim O'Leary, who you heard from. We also have from Customer and Community, Faith Hassel, who is your liaison, for lack of a better term. And we also have Kate Davenport, who is manager of project management from National Grid as well. Next slide. So again, not to rehash a lot of things as we did have extensive meetings about this, but in case anyone is here who is new or hasn't really been following this project is a reliability project, which is replacing an existing 115 kilovolt underground transmission line that is currently in Salem and Beverly. This line supplies power to the local grid, and it's roughly about serving 50,000 electric customers in Beverly, Essex, Gloucester, Hamilton, Manchester, Rockport, and Wenham. Originally, it was installed in 1971, so as most things, as you use them, you need to replace them, and this cable is in dire need of replacement, which is what we are doing right now in construction. We are replacing it with a modern duct bank and manhole system throughout the city, connecting and building a new substation in Salem. So it will be connecting that and really bolstering the reliability of the region. So next slide. So in earnest, construction did begin in November 2022, and that was once all of the pre-construction conditions that were listed in the grant of location were fulfilled. And to date, we have accomplished 100% of the manholes have been installed. We've been working with the Citizens Advisory Committee for 1 year. We have also put 2 rock splitters in service on this project. We have completed the River Street crossing, which was a pretty major crossing for the duct bank. We also continue to coordinate with both Beverly and Salem Police, Fire, DPW, Department of Health, the Conservation Committee, the tree wardens, the harbor masters, as well as the Coast Guard. Those are all meetings that happen at regular schedules. We are complete with the substation build on Waite Street, which is in Salem, and we are about 90% complete with the work at the East Beverly substation. So some of the construction challenges that we have encountered is the ledge, which I believe everyone has kind of heard of, and the unmarked utilities and the limited availability of crews. Some of the questions that we've been asked were, if there was, we knew that there was ledge there, why would we construct there? And while it is very common for us to construct where ledge is present. We have plenty of, there's homes, there's businesses, there's also a lot of underground infrastructure, even in areas where there's ledge. The challenge that we have with this particular area is the depth of the ledge. And so it takes longer to get through that, and that's why we did procure those rock splitters. So, again, also unmarked utilities are a normal challenge, especially in areas where there is older infrastructure. Maps aren't always updated. If you go to different areas within the United States, sometimes you'll hear, Harry, who retired 15 years ago, knew where every single pipe was laid. Was it on a map? No. So part of our commitment to the city as we've been doing this is we are updating utilities and underground infrastructure as we're finding it so that you can in turn update your own records as well. And then lastly on this slide was the limited availability of crews. We have secured additional crews moving forward. Next slide. So some of the concerns that we've heard from the community, and this again is through either our hotline, our email, through the regular meetings with the Citizens Advisory Committee, as well as Will, who wasn't able to be here tonight, as he's doing door-to-door outreach as well. So some of those are the noise from the excavation, the ledge removal, noise from the equipment, such as the vac trucks, noise from cars driving over the plates at night, vehicle idling, the pace of the work, rodent control, additional sweeping of work sites, visibility of porta potties, and equipment storage. So to talk about how we've addressed these, I have the next, perfect, thank you, Faith. So we did make some changes to the weekly newsletter and our door-to-door literature. We added language about the noise that would be expected from the equipment. We also did include door-to-door notifications if the schedule has to change. So if for some reason we have to move to a different site or the work has to shift, we've done those notifications via door-to-door on top of the newsletter. We've also, like I said earlier, we've brought in special equipment to speed up the ledge removal. We have paused work in certain locations to offer reprieve for the residents. We did extend the precise and EMF measurements. So if you remember earlier on, precise was the video surveys of the properties, and so people can still sign up for those, again, using the hotline or our email address. Same thing with the EMF measurements, and then what we do is we group those together and schedule them out so that people have access to that information for themselves. We've benefited from feedback through the comments on the project hotline and the email, as well as feedback from city officials and the Citizens Advisory Committee. We are continuing to work with the Cummings Center for office space for community members to use during construction. Environmental information was also requested, and there is coordination happening amongst various city and National Grid departments to address that and get those meetings or that information done. And so as more information becomes available, we will absolutely share with that. And then we also have increased our coordination with the Department of Health on the rodent control issues. So again, we were aware that the city had their own initiative around rodent control, and then so we are again sharing data that we are getting as we continue to progress, and we're using those smart boxes, and so there's a lot of coordination there so that the city has as much data available as possible. So the next slide. So this is what to expect in the coming months, and work will continue on Wellman Street and finish in about 4 to 6 weeks. Work has begun between the manhole at Monument Square and Hale Street, with excavation moving towards Hale Street expected in the coming weeks. We also have 2 additional crews joining us this week, and we will have 3 additional crews by the middle of November. pretty much for the last wrap up, I just wanted to remind everybody that information about the project, the website is really a one-stop shop, and you can access everything from National Grid's EFSB application, the DPUs as well, and then also the city clerk has a hard copy, so does the library, and then all of the there's a link over here. All of the EFSB proceedings are also on that link, and also on the website when you go into there, into kind of, as you're looking at the different documents, we have the MOU, we have the grant of location, we have the EMF studies, we have the traffic management plans, we have the traffic studies, we also have the routing studies as well. So there's a plethora of information that people can easily access through the website. And so with that, I will thank you and open it up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that presentation that addresses some of, I think, what we've been hearing. I'm sure we have other questions among us up here as well. Councillor Houseman, I saw your hand first, and then we'll go to Councillor Sweeney.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank National Grid for being here, but also particularly the several members of the Citizens Advisory Committee membership, so-called loosely, but regulars, if you will, for all the dedication work that they've been doing on behalf of all the residents along the route. I have a couple of different things I'd like to clarify, maybe 3 questions. One is regarding the additional crews that you mentioned, 2 this week and 3 coming. Are those for a limited period of time, or going forward going to continue to be dedicated to this project?
I'm going to let Tim answer that.
Thanks, Councilor. Tim O'Leary, National Grid. Great question. So those crews will be with us throughout the winter, as we do have approval through the city right now to work during the winter moratorium, as well as right through the spring. The goal is to be able to, as most folks are aware in this room, especially with the advisory committee, we are not where we like to be on the schedule of progress, so the pace. So to increase that chance of getting back on schedule, they'll be here winter right through into the spring.
Yeah, so that actually brings me to one of my other sort of main questions, which is the MOU really contemplated an 18-month project window. And many of us, if not all of us up here, suggested to you that that was quite unrealistic. It is proven to be quite unrealistic. So I'm very glad to hear about the additional crews coming, because at the pace we're going, I'd project that 18 months will be closer to 3 years, if not longer. So the additional crews will make a significant difference, hopefully. I would hope that they might even be authorized to stay on the project, if not either through completion or beyond the window that you're talking about in terms of authorization, whichever it takes to get this done as quickly as possible. The other thing I want to mention is the bullet point relating to office space. So there's been an ongoing conversation with you in the advisory committee meetings. And without getting into the specifics of where things stand now, although I do want to hear about that, sort of an update to our usual updates. The one thing I want to mention is the advisory committee and Danielle, we had this conversation in our last meeting, really talked about how there is no, there's nothing in the state legislation, no authorization for National Grid to make accommodations to people who are inconvenienced by a project like this. And certainly the folks in Councilor Rand's district in particular, up on Goat Hill, have been just terribly, terribly impacted by this project. And at the state level, there is absolutely no means by which, in regular order, those folks could be accommodated or have the impacts mitigated. And in this day and age, many people work from home. And many people, affected by this have literally said, I'm leaving. I'm going away for 3 months. I'm going to rent a B&B somewhere else because I can't get my work done. That's maybe an extreme example, but not particularly. So we have discussed at the advisory committee level, perhaps coming up with some kind of letter. We haven't really, still very much in the idea stage and research stage, but perhaps coming back to the council to ask the council to sign a letter that might go to the state DPU. Again, we still have to sort of figure out what the best audience might be. But trying to communicate the experience that residents in Beverly have had and advocate for some kind of benefit to mitigate the impact of these kinds of projects on people who are affected by them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Houseman. Councillor Sweeney, and then we'll go to Councillor St. Hilaire, please.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'll just echo the thanks that Councillor Houseman gave to the volunteers. I appreciate the work that you guys have done on behalf of all of the impacted residents along this route. I just have one question. I apologize if you had covered this. At this time, what is the anticipated completion date of this project?
So at this time, we still anticipate the energization of the new cable by the end of calendar year 2024. However, the construction continues throughout 2025 because we also have the removal portion of the work. That's, some of it, as we all know, is along the MBTA right away. Some of it's in Goat Hill, as well as there's a submarine cable portion, and there's some on River Street that goes down a little further than a lot of folks probably realized at first. So that will take place throughout the entire year of 2025. So the total project does continue past the end of 2024 when we anticipate having a new cable energized.
Okay, thank you for that response. And just to clarify, so I'm looking at the map on the third slide of the presentation. Will the work along the route that's outlined, that is where the line itself will run, that will be completed if I were to, essentially, if I live on this route, will I notice the construction impact after the end of calendar year 2024? And how does that then tie into what you mentioned about the MBTA?
So what you'll see once the cable is energized is we go back and we remove the portions that are, some of the portions of the old transmission line that we're replacing run along parts of the same road. So again, like we said, there is an old cable that runs up through Goat Hill, and there's a little small portion that is on, did you say Broadway? River Street, sorry. There's a portion that goes on River Street. So that area will have that, we'll see us removing the old cable. That's not quite as impactful as installing a duct bank, though, because that old cable is direct buried right underneath the road. It's not you're not excavating a duct bank. And then there's the portion that's in the MBTA right of way, which would have to be coordinated with the MBTA.
Okay, so for the bulk of the route from, I guess, looking at the map, like Broadway up, that work would be completed at the end of calendar year 2024, and then the lucky residents of Goat Hill would get to see a second round of work that runs into 2025 tied to the what would then be no longer active pre-existing line that would now need to be removed.
Correct. We can't leave it in the ground we can't abandon it in place. We have to remove it.
That makes sense to me. I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
No problem.
That's all from me, Madam President. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney.
I would be remiss in my thanks to not mention the outstanding work that Councillor Rand has also done as co-chair of this committee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Houseman. Thank you, Councillor Rand. Councillor St. Hilaire.
I'm all set. Councillor Sweeney covered my points. Thank you.
Very efficiently done. Thank you. Councillor Rotundo.
I don't know if this would be a question with you or more the DPS, because we understand that the construction's happening and you're going to go back and do some additional construction, but I think the residents want to know is when will the roads be repaved as well as the sidewalks. So what is the anticipation? I know the city's getting the money. We've already received some appropriation from you guys. but what's the expectation of the work? So reality is, Goat Hill people may not be getting any road work until maybe 2025, 26, or 2026, the reality of it. Is that the correct assumption on that one?
So you would have to ask your commissioner, but from what I've understood from meetings is that they're looking at if there's sections that are done, they can start before we're completely energized.
So but I guess the question really is, Goat Hill specifically, you're going backwards to remove the old line. So it would be fruitless for DPS to go there, pave sections, and then you guys come dig it back up. So I just want to kind of clarify that so that the expectations that people do realize is that they're not going to see any road work being done for at least another 2 years.
No, there would be temporary paving that would be done so that the street doesn't have, obvious like steel plates or anything. There would be a temporary pave job that's done before they go back and do the full road restoration.
So then on that temporary paving, would that be similar to what's done on Cabot Street where that little patchwork is done? Or would it be more extensive, I guess, because we're seeing how great of a job National Grid has done with Cabot Street and how disastrous it is from...
I'm not familiar with Cabot Street.
That's
sorry,
right, but I guess that's what I'm trying to get consideration is, even if there's temporary patchwork, what is that going to look like? Is it going to look like what you guys have done with the electrical side? Which, no, I'm sorry, that's the gas side. Gas side doing on Cabot Street, where the trench work has been done, and it really is not that great. So is that what's the expectations going to happen on the electrical part?
So let me answer the question. I can't say yes or no to the Cabot Street. If anybody's familiar with some of the areas that we've already temporarily paved over, as we have set and installed the manholes, it'll be very similar. It'll be in better shape. It won't be perfect, but it'll be in better shape than it was prior to us digging in to that section of the street. For Congress, Wellman, Weber, and parts of River Street, you are correct. That would be the last piece of any of the work that I can't speak for the city, but that would be the most logical last piece of the work. Okay. So the folks in those areas wouldn't be seeing any newly paved roads. Sidewalks, they'll be working in conjunction and at a different time frame, but they wouldn't be seeing any of the new paved roads for quite a while.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Bowen.
Thank you. I also want to share my thanks to everyone who's been working to make that project slightly less impactful on residents. So had similar questions. One additional question that I had is about the storage and staging of equipment. I know we've talked about this in some other settings, but just for the benefit of all of us here, how you're thinking about that going forward. And the question really comes from, we put a condition in place that equipment would not be staged in the public way and in the public's way unless it was really necessary and exceptions were made with the Public Services Department. And it seems like over the first year of the project, it's been routine to leave heavy equipment for weeks on end, even when work isn't happening. I know last Christmas, New Year's week, it was a slushy, icy mess navigating around heavy equipment left in place while no work was happening. I hope that's not going to be the case going forward. And so I was hoping to get some reassurance on that and what adjustments you've made to lessen the impact. Because I think most of the residents along the route have said when the team is there actively working and something comes up, they need access to a driveway or something goes wrong, that the teams on the ground are very responsive and helpful and troubleshooting. And but when nobody is there and there's just something in the way of parking, of navigating, of walking down the sidewalk safely, that really impacts us, and there's nobody there to help with it. So if you could just speak to that a little bit.
Certainly, thanks, Councilor. So as far as the holiday weeks and any times around long weekends, we've made every attempt to have the conditions a little bit more appeasable, more appealing, I think, to members of the public. Each road that we work on each construction site, as we move up or down, east or west, north or south, we do work with the Commissioner of the Public Works to in order to sustain what pieces of equipment that we can leave there, what's advantageous to move, what's not advantageous to move in any shape or form, depending on the size of the construction site and just the elevation of noise, movement of equipment and construction. It's not efficient in any shape or form at times to continually to drag some of the heavy equipment over and over some of these streets. So we work each location. We meet every 2 weeks to discuss if there's any issues. Some folks have given feedback that it seems like there's more equipment on roads. Other folks have given feedback that there's less equipment on certain roads. So we try to minimize as much impact as we can with the equipment on site. There's materials are moved every single, at the end of every shift. However, some of the larger pieces of equipment are left on site. You've seen it, it's around, and we'll continue to work with the commissioner on each location.
Thank you, and I appreciate the difficulty of figuring out exactly what's most efficient, so just want to voice that what is most efficient from an engineering standpoint may be different from the impact on the neighborhood, and those things have to be balanced carefully, so appreciate your attention to that. I think my other question, I would love to get a couple of updates in more depth on kind of the volume of calls and emails you're getting and ability to respond to those, and then the results you're seeing with the increased rodent control. If those aren't available right now, can follow up with additional updates.
So we'll work our way back. Rodent control is easily available. I have it right here. We talk about it every month. And so at the end of September, so as of October 1st, we have 67, we'll call it the smart box technology that's deployed throughout the in different phases and different pieces of the construction site. So there's 67 that continues. There's some more resources available as we increase the crews. Obviously, we're going to have to increase the footprint of where the rodent control devices go. But it's only utilizing the smart box technology, very similar to the ones the city is utilizing now. I think it's been very effective. There are times that there's been some complaints. We've worked with the Department of Health. We've gone out there, investigated. We have a specialist on that can go out and look at things. At times, it's not anything related to construction, and at times, obviously, we do cause some of the rodents to move around. And so 67 devices. As of October 1st, there was 490 what we call catches in those devices. So it slowly increases. We haven't seen much of a pattern one way or another, but obviously the most impactful area is the lower Goat Hill area from the bridge up towards Wellman. That's where most of the construction's taken place. That's where the devices have been in since the beginning stages. So that's where we stand with the rodent control.
I can, I'm more than happy to follow up to give you exact numbers. But as recently as the last time that the Citizens Advisory Committee had met regarding hotline and emails, everything was, any phone call we got was pretty much handled and closed out within 24 hours. And emails were also addressed, questions, most of them having to do with things like how to sign up for the EMF or if somebody was interested in the precise survey. So that's been the majority of the calls. Every now and then we will get a call if somebody has a question regarding work hours or the traffic management plans as well. And signage, that's another one that we get, just kind of making sure that there's signage out there, and so, but they're answered usually within 24 hours.
Please. Thank you, and I hope that is encouraging to neighbors along the rest of the route who haven't yet seen as much construction, that if they place a call, they'll get a response. I've heard the same, that it's a good way to be able to address things right in the moment.
It's the most efficient way because, like I said, Will is, that hotline rings to his phone and he's checking the email, and if we get an email, he gets it and I can immediately address it, he immediately addresses it, but it's a much quicker chain than having to go through different corporate websites and try to, we're here and Will's here, and that's why we wanted the dedicated hotline and email address for the project.
Please.
Thank you. I have one last question, I realized, particularly with adding additional crews. Can you share a little bit about just how worker safety is going? I know there was at least one accident early on. So just how you're thinking about keeping not just residents safe and not impacted, but workers as well.
I'll let Tim answer that, but just so that to make people also aware is that as we're bringing on more crews, which means we'll have more active work sites, we'll be also doing door-to-door outreach, really kind of letting people know. But it's also, you know, again, as you have more construction sites, you will have more impacts. So that means, you know, traffic management plans continuously being reviewed, and you'll see more equipment on the street. So there's, you know, it's I don't want to say a catch-22, but you want to progress, so you have to bring on more crews, which means more active work zones. So it's really, you know, it's going to be also, you know, our message to the community to really be, you know, keep your eyes open, look at what's around you, because it's not just us. You guys have a ton of construction going on as well in the city. So, but Tim, you can do the safety part.
No, thanks, Council. Obviously, safety is number one for the public, our contractors, our employees, across the board. I think everybody here understands that. There's been 2 incidents on the project. One was with both were on the same road, Wellman Street. One was with a contractor that was doing work as like a subcontractor. They test cement. We do it on site. And their foot, one of the triaxle dump trucks rolled up against their foot. Can't confirm if it ever rolled over the foot, but they rolled up on a foot. And it was sort of best way I can describe it is like almost like a hairline stress, like a muscle pull almost, but like to the person's lower leg. So thankfully, it could have been much worse, right? When you think of a triaxle dump truck. So it didn't roll over the person's foot, rolled up against it, and caused some issues with their ankle. They didn't miss any work and they were a subcontractor. There was also a incident with the member of the public on Lower Wellman, and that was, they had, without going into too many details, because it is a member of the public and we want to keep that, there's a level of confidentiality and trust, but they did enter the work site with their vehicle, and nobody got hurt, thankfully. Could have been, there was police details there, there was all the traffic safety, but it was an incident that, unfortunately, in construction in the city streets, anywhere in New England, we have faced over time. We do everything we can to protect the public and anybody working, and thankfully nobody was hurt, and I don't think there was even any damage to the vehicle, but it was a close call.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rand.
Thank you so much. I guess I just had a question and a comment, 2 questions and a comment. One is just to follow up on Counselor Bowen's original thought, reminded me that I've been meaning to ask you. Might as well do it here, and maybe you can give me an answer tonight or Thursday. There is a spot on Wellman Street, right at the beginning of the street, where there's a steel plate, and there's a kind of a barrier, like little barricade set up around the steel plates, which has been there for months, and it's caving in. It's not really functional. Not the steel plate, but the barriers are caving in and no longer functioning. So I'm hoping that you can just sort of assess that and decide whether that needs to be there or not, and if the signage is still serving its purpose.
Is this, Council, is this the corner of Congress and Wellman at the bottom of the hill?
Oh, I'm sorry, at Weber, sorry.
Up at Weber. Oh, yes. So that is we will look at that, make sure that it gets safe. That is critical to stay there. That's the entrance back down into the River Street Yard where we'll be doing construction this winter. So we will look to see if there's something else we can do there.
Yeah, it's just not really properly in place anymore, the way it's been set up. Like I said, things are falling down.
We'll have that looked at.
Okay, thank you. And that's an example of the kind of things that we bring to the committee every 2 weeks, first and third Thursdays of the month at the library. And I just want to make sure that at least we all know here, and anyone who's watching, that those meetings are open to the public. Anyone who shows up can speak at those meetings, and we're sort of, gathering members as we go through different neighborhoods. So I just want everyone to know they're welcome to show up if they have a problem like that, or any other problem, or a compliment, or just want to hang out with us and talk about National Grid. You're welcome to be there 5 o'clock, the first and third Thursday of the month. And then my other question is there already sort of a timeline and map of the removal process of the cable? Just kind of listening to Councilor Rotundo's questions made me really hope that Wellman Street will have the cable removed first, and that will be paved first when the project is done, so in 2025, when the removal begins.
So we can't remove the old cable until the new cable is completely installed and energized, and then you have to go through the different chunks. So that's why we were saying that it might be easier to go in, possibly in areas where where the removal will go along quicker due to the substrate. It could also be, for multiple reasons, environmental permits or environmental restrictions that we might have, timing also with MBTA. So right now, there isn't a schedule built in, but as we get closer towards that, you'll absolutely have a schedule and a map.
Just a follow-up comment that I'm aware that the cable on Wellman is actually not, this is the old cable, is not very deep into the street for reasons that we all know now. And I'm just formally requesting that that be prioritized as you know, Wellman Street has suffered for almost a year with a lot of rock splitting every day. And I think it would be really the right thing to do to just try and wrap that part of the project up first. So I'm looking forward to future meetings and seeing kind of how that plan unfolds, and also requesting that Wellman Street might be prioritized to finish first.
Yes, so you're right there, Councilor. Commissioner Collins has pretty much requested the same timeline.
I'm glad we're on the same
So
page.
and that was something that was going to work very similar to our planning, pre-planning, regardless. So.
Okay, and we'll see a full plan of the removal of the cable before 2025?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rand. Other councilors with questions? I have a couple, if other councilors have had a chance. So thank you, councilors, for your questions. Thank you for this update, National Grid, and I too will say thank you to the Citizen Advisory Committee members. And I should have said that part of what precluded our chance to have this conversation here is that members of that committee, as well as Councilors Rand and Houseman, did help to update the council about what has been happening within those meetings, but also what residents are seeing and hearing. And I think many of us are hearing from residents regularly as well, and I think that's informing questions that you're hearing tonight. I'm sure many are questions that are coming directly to you as well, but we certainly do hear, but also see what's happening for residents. And so one of the questions that I had was, I guess I'm going to follow up on the Wellman Street train of thought, but I am curious. I noticed in the presentation it said Wellman is expected to finish in 4 to 6 weeks. I was wondering if you could just share a little bit more about, because of course, I mean, there's other pieces, that's what we've talked about, right? So it's not finished, and I understand that, and I'm sure anybody listening would, but can you share with me what, if I live on Wellman Street in 4 to 6 weeks, what does expected to finish mean right now, and what will that look and feel like in 4 to 6 weeks on Wellman Street?
So the majority of the rock splitting, the duct bank will be installed. We'll have backfill and cement in the hole. There could still be some steel plates that we'd be working on getting off of, but the below-ground excavation work would be completed. There could be still some above paving and logistical work right after that.
Thank you. So for folks on Wellman, in terms of, like you mentioned, the rock splitting and the depth of the ledge, I know there have been residents who have experienced disruption in some cases to pipes or to sewer pipes. Is it correct to say that if that kind of intense work is finished, there are concerns about pipes under the street, breakage of pipes under the street, is that minimized when this portion of the work is done?
Yes. So that impactful excavation work and noise will be the portion of the work that'll be completed.
Okay. And I guess I'll say one more thing, which is the other day, I had occasion to drive down Wellman Street, and I was surprised by how much heavy equipment is staged on Wellman. And because I think we've all just addressed that for that street particularly, and for Goat Hill particularly, it's been almost a year of living with this. More, actually, I'll say, just if you talk about pre-work, more that they've been living with it. And so I think all of us, including those of you presenting, I think are sympathetic to what that would feel like. And so my question is, and because it's a narrow street with a hill on top, I think some of the sight lines when that heavy equipment is there for vehicles coming down are very tricky. And I have heard from some residents that they've had some narrow misses with collisions because they're coming around heavy equipment. So I'm curious if there's a timeline for being able to move some of that heavy equipment off Wellman, even to stage it down in a city lot right nearby. But it does feel like the impact on Wellman is pretty heavy in terms of heavy equipment right now, storage. Is there a timeline for being able to move that off of that street?
So right now, it's that same timeline of the 4 to 6 weeks. That's all the equipment they need to really do the excavation work. We will relook at that, talk to the commissioner on Wednesday, in fact, and look to see if there's something else we can do to reduce that. We have heard some of the same concerns. We've seen that. It's quite obvious. One of the things they're trying to do is at the end of each job site at the day is look for those potential impacts for traffic flow for off hours. We work with the police details. Is it perfect? No, but continually trying to get a little better at it because every time they have to adjust that, it does, for anybody who doesn't travel the road all the time, it would be a surprise. For the folks who travel the road, we also worry about that because they could become complacent to some of the job sites. And once it changes, that could cause a concern. So we do actively look at, we don't just stage it and just kind of shove it there and put some cones around. There is a process of looking at that to see what kind of hazards could be mitigated at the end of each site.
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess I'll just add a plug for, as you're looking at it, anything that could be done, I think, to minimize staging, and especially there at the hill where it is difficult for people to come around. I think if that can be addressed, it would go a long way both for people, as you said, who travel the street regularly, but also for people who are not as familiar with the street. They're all using it at one time, and so they're meeting up there. One other question that I had, you addressed it, and thank you, Councilor Bowen, you asked about the smart boxes. That was one of my questions. So I know you said 490 catches and devices as of October 1st. I am wondering if you're seeing areas, you mentioned Goat Hill is one of the areas where a lot of the catches have happened, and you mentioned in the presentation coordinating with the Department of Health. Is there a plan to deploy more pest control in that area, additional smart boxes? In that area, I know you said where new crews begin work, you'll have more. But I have heard from residents that they are in some cases hiring their own pest control. So I'm wondering if you're seeing a lot of catches in that area, can there be increased attention to that area?
Yeah, we do have more. It's interesting, Council President. We'd love to work with those residents as well if they're hiring, and people do that, right, routinely in non-construction work areas. But we would be willing to work, our pest control, work with them to see, is it something construction related? Is it something from a road that might run parallel? We've had those issues on Broadway. We've had to go out and investigate, and it was some issues that unrelated to construction that was on a parallel road. It's not always the case, but that's just one example. We would love to work in conjunction with those residents if they can provide some of that feedback, because I think it would be helpful to the whole community in that case.
Thank you. So if there were residents in that situation, the best way for them to contact you would be to contact directly the way that they would reach out for any other concern. Is that correct?
Yes. And without getting into too many specifics, we have increased in some of the areas that has seen, lack of a better term, an influx of some of the catches. So we do work, and we're working with the department to see what we can now move around, because there were some areas that really had no activity, and we want to efficiently use these boxes the best we can.
Thank you. I appreciate that and appreciate having that data. I think it would be helpful. We can do more of this checking in with the council, but it would be helpful, I think, for us to hear that data as you get that new data coming in as well. I just had one other question, and Councilor Houseman, I think, sort of already alluded to it or touched on it, and Councilor Sweeney as well. But I am curious. I'm glad to hear that it sounds like you expect that by end of calendar year 2024, that map that we saw, that route, save for the removal of the old cable, the construction will be done. But I'm wondering if you can just explain a little bit more about what makes you feel optimistic that that is the case. And I'm asking that because we're talking about construction in this one small portion of the project taking nearly a year. And it strikes me that we're mid-October. And so I'm just thinking about what's left on the map and thinking about, I know you're gonna add more crews and maybe that's why, but I'm hoping you can maybe just share a little bit about what makes you optimistic that in almost the same time span that we've been on Wellman and Weber and now Broadway, we'll cover the rest of the route. And Lothrop's quite long in and of itself, and that's not the entirety of it. So I'm just wondering if you can just share what makes you feel it will go along smoother and quicker.
We're always looking for how do we allocate our resources the most efficiently as we can. I don't think a good snapshot of the project is Wellman Street. It just is frustrating to the crews and National Grid. It's more than frustrating to the residents of that road, anywhere on the road, really, including Weber. So it's really not a good predictor. One of the things that we've been able to see is how quickly we've been able to get through River Street. So there's 3 major crossings, River, Rantoul, and of course right out here in front of City Hall. And that infrastructure is challenging because it's just the nature of all the different, everything else on the ground. So we've been able to do that as well as progress up along Park Street at a decent pace. Still slower than we want to be, so we'll continue to work on that. So that provides more optimism. And in each one of the manholes, and as we work out in front of the fire station right now, we're seeing a little bit of a different pace that we would be more accustomed to.
Thank you. My last question is, do you anticipate there being more ledge than you expect in other areas of construction, like, for example, Lothrop Street?
Yes.
I do too. Thank you. So that may set the project back. Is that fair to say?
That will be the probably the largest challenge we face.
Okay. Thank you. Councilors, any other? Councilor Houseman.
Just a quick follow-up
Please.
To your last question. So what's the total number of crews that will be working in Beverly starting next week? When you said you were going to have 3 additional crews.
So for starting next week, we'll be up to 6, and then we'll be up to 9 come about mid-November.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other questions or comments from councilors? Thank you to National Grid for being here to present. I'm thinking it would be helpful, and Ms. Hassel and I sent an invitation through Ms. Hassel, but once there are the 9 crews working, I would find it helpful to have you all back so that we could hear an update on how things are progressing. So Ms. Hassel, maybe you and I could work on getting the team back here, but I was thinking it would be really helpful to hear once that significant milestone is reached. Mr. O'Leary.
If we can just make one last statement. As National Grid and the project team, we really want to thank the councilors, especially the 2 councilors who are present at just about every Citizens Advisory Committee. Councilor Bowen has also been there, as well as the citizens have really helped. I know it's frustrating beyond belief, but it also provides, as Councilor Houseman said, folks an opportunity to come and vent a little about their frustration, and that's something that they need to do. It also gives us a point that we can now reach out to other citizens, because we do worry about the citizens who aren't going to be that vocal with the councilors or the crews or the hotline. And the citizens have really helped get out into the neighborhoods and helped gather information. They've also provided great insight, not just from like school bus routes, but different community events that folks who may not be living right inside these districts are not privy to. So that's been a huge help to us. So the feedback we've gotten, although tough to hear at times, has been valuable to the project, and we hope that can continue. So we want to just thank everybody, the residents that are here. They provide feedback. There's a level of frustration, and what I wanted to just let folks know that there are things that we cannot answer at the advisory committee, and that's we don't make comment on any personnel issues that we have, whether within our company or contractors. We don't make, there are certain residents who ask us about things and tell us things they don't want anybody else to know about. And there's also claims information that's very challenging to be able to discuss, even though we may have some of that information, as well as city infrastructure. We get a lot of questions on city infrastructure as we open up. We're not experts on the water and sewer system, and we don't comment on city infrastructure. We work closely with the city. They have an engineer who's overseeing every step of the way, every day on there, and that feedback gets back to the city. So we don't comment on city infrastructure, and that's not something we're going to change. So it does frustrate people, and I apologize for that. But
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, and I will just mention, before you go, one thing I have heard from residents, and I'll just leave this to you to please consider, is that if there is a problem and they're navigating the claims process online, which you were alluding to, sometimes it can be difficult just either to navigate or they're missing each other, that they're getting calls back and then they're leaving messages back and forth. And a few residents have asked, and to me, this sounds like a good suggestion, I'm passing it on. If it'd be possible to occasionally schedule into the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings times when someone who is a claims specialist could be there, and there could be even 15-minute appointments if someone needs help meeting with that person rather than calling on the phone or trying to navigate through the website. And that, to me, feels like a way to increase accessibility. And so I'll put that out to you and leave it as a question to consider.
I can talk to McCord about that because the claims process is through them, not through National Grid. So I'll talk to them about having that capability added in.
Thank you. That would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you, counselors, for the questions. Thank you again to the residents who are here now and those who have been involved in this process, also for actually many months with us, going back to before the grant of location was issued. It certainly has been a community-driven conversation. Thank you, National Grid, for being here to present, and Ms. Hessel will stay in touch and have you all back when some of those crews get working, and we'll get another update. Thank you very much. Ms. Kent, let's go to communications from His Honor the Mayor, please.
Order number 253, dear Honorable City Council, I respectfully request that you approve a budgetary transfer which will allow the city to perform surveying, wetland, and conceptual design work on Aubert Park. The work is necessary to initiate local and state permitting in an effort to implement resiliency measures for coastal corrosion at Aubert Park. Although the city was not awarded recent grants to implement these measures, this continued work will better position the city to be successful in its next funding application expected for the spring of 2024. These funds will allow the city to initiate the part of project scope as shown in the attached documentation. I am requesting that $100,000 of the reserved for unforeseen account be transferred into the public property account to perform the necessary work. Please initiate action at your next city council meeting by setting a public hearing. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property. We'll set that public hearing.
Order number 254. Dear Honorable City Council, I hereby appoint, subject to review and recommendation, Ms. Wendy Pearl, 21 Morningside Drive, Beverly, to serve as the Historic District Commission representative on the Design Review Board. Her term is to be effective from December 1st, 2023 until December 1st, 2026. Sincerely yours, Michael P. Cahill, Mayor.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. Let's go to communications from other city officers and boards, please.
Order number 255 from the city clerk, a request for approval for the November 7th, 2023 municipal election warrant.
Councilors, I would entertain a motion to approve Order 255 on the floor.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 256 from the city clerk, a request for approval of in-person early voting schedule for November 7th, 2023 municipal election.
Similarly, I would entertain a motion to approve Order 256 to approve that schedule for in-person early voting on the floor.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Kent, to you and your team for all the work getting ready for our elections.
Order number 257 from the city clerk, an application for hawkers and peddlers license for George Sampson of 66 Essex Street.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 258 from Council Bowen, a letter to discuss the current status and future direction of major building projects in the city.
Please refer that to the Committee on Finance and Property.
Order number 239A from the city solicitor regarding order 239-2023, review of city ordinances, city solicitor proposed amendments.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs.
Order number 184A from the planning board, a city council order 184-2023, recommendations from planning board relative to proposed zoning ordinance amendments regarding accessory dwelling units, definitions regarding transit lodging, bed and breakfasts, and other minor clarifications.
Please refer that to the Committee on Legal Affairs. And with that, I would entertain a motion to take a brief break for some committee work.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. So we'll take a break for committee work. We'll have legal affairs here on BevCam, finance and property in the committee room, and public services on the bench.
Feel it coming.
We will take up order number 257 first, which is a renewal application from George Sampson for a hawkers and peddlers license. Any questions from committee members?
None for me, I'm familiar with the man.
Sorry, I missed that,
Questions?
Counselor. No, I have no question.
Okay, I would accept a motion to approve this, recommend that the council approve this license.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 2-0. Okay. Okay, next we'll take up order number 184A. And Director of Planning Darlene Nguyen is here. Would you like to just say anything about the revisions that you're proposing for the accessory dwelling units?
Darlene Nguyen, Planning Director. Just briefly there, they were discussed at the Planning Board public hearing prior to making their recommendation, but high level
changes were made to address, or high-level discussion, summary of the changes were basically to address two questions that had come up during the overall public hearing. One was removing the requirement for tandem parking on an off-street parking space for each ADU unit, leaving the property owners to deal with the parking issue on their own, and resolve that if it is an issue, which it may not be. And then the larger one was really addressing the question about kind of parity for allowing any home or property owner to apply for a variance if they have a non-conforming situation, rather than just flat out saying that that option was not on the table. So it required a lot of edits, but in reality, and a lot of kind of legal and planning conversations, but in reality, that's the nuts and bolts of the change, is that person who's looking to do an ADU would have the same rights to seek a variance or a special permit if that was the right course of action. They would need a special permit for the use as well, if it's not a by right situation. So those would not be considered by right situations.
Thank you for that high-level view. And Solicitor Williams, would you like to just sort of tell our committee why this would require a public hearing?
Sure. I think it's sort of a toss-up as to whether, I think an argument can be made that it doesn't require another public hearing, but it's a material change, or sufficiently material, and there's not a rush. So my recommendation is that the better course of action would be to have another public hearing and publish what the proposed revisions are to the amendments, so that people understand that what is now being proposed will allow people with non-conforming situations or who need a variance to apply for a special permit for the ADU use. And just so that everybody has a chance to weigh in on that change. And so I recommend that the council hold another public hearing on those amendments.
Thank you for that recommendation.
Okay.
And I agree that seems like a big enough change to, hold more time for the public to weigh in.
Sure,
So.
and people, and I know at the planning board, they actually did that, those amendments were in front of the planning board, so the public did get to weigh in, and there was a robust discussion around it. So in my view, it's only the city council that would have the public hearing. It doesn't need to be a joint public hearing.
Okay. All right. Any questions from councilors? Councilor Rotundo?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Stephanie or Ms. Williams, on the these two particular changes, those are what's going to only be advertised, not the whole
In the ad?
in the ad?
Well, we'll work with the city clerk, but my thinking is that because of the length of it, first of all, we summarized the proposed amendments to begin with. So there would be a summary of revisions to the amendments, right? So it's only going to focus on what's different. That would be my recommendation. But there still should be reference to the original draft that was filed so that people can go back and look at that as well.
May I have one more follow-up?
Yes, please.
So in regards to this, another public hearing, it still doesn't negate the public to reference back to the prior. I know we're concentrating on the new edits and additions, but if someone chose to rehash whatever, they still could bring that up.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sweeney?
I don't have any questions. I'm comfortable with that approach that the solicitors recommended.
Okay, thank you. I would accept a motion to set a public hearing for November 20th at 7:30 PM.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. And we also have received order number 239A, which is regarding the review of ordinances, and that will stay in our committee. And I just wanted to say thank you to Solicitor Williams and your department for doing so much work over, I don't know, at least the past 5 or 6 years you've been collecting edits.
Sticky notes here and there, but seriously since February.
So yeah, it's fun to look at the work, and it's already, bringing up really interesting conversations within legal affairs. And just so anyone watching knows, legal affairs our Legal Affairs Committee is meeting at 6 PM on the same Mondays as the council meetings to discuss ordinance review. So anyone who's interested in that can attend that meeting to listen in. And I believe that's all we have. I would accept a motion to adjourn Legal Affairs Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Kim, you good? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll call the full council back to order for reports from committees. Ms. Kent.
Order number 253, the Committee on Finance and Property, whom referred the matter regarding a budgetary transfer of $100,000 from the reserve for unforeseen account to allow the city to continue work in Obeah Park. To set a public hearing for October 30th at 7:30 PM.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? I would entertain a motion to affirm setting that public hearing for October 30th at 7:30 PM.
Moved.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. That's 9-0, and so we will set that public hearing for our next regular meeting on October 30th, 7:30 PM.
Order number 241, the Committee on Public Services, to whom referred the matter regarding a petition 307-56481 Elliott Street to install one SO stub pole and stub guy on the northwest corner at the intersection between County Way and Elliott Street, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the petition be granted.
Questions or comments on that one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 242, the Committee on Public Services, to whom referred the matter, petition 307-56481 County Way to install a new pole and anchor on the intersection of Northern Ave and County Way, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the petition be granted.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0 as well.
Order number 245, the Committee on Public Services, to whom referred the matter regarding an appointment for Daniel Winchell to serve on the Council on Aging, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this appointment.
Questions or comments on this one? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0, sorry.
Order number 257, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom referred the matter regarding renewal application for George Sampson of 66 Essex Street for hawkers and peddler license, has recommended that the council approve.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0.
Order number 246, the Committee on Legal Affairs, to whom referred the matter regarding a reappointment for Peter Davicos to serve as constable in the city of Beverly, have considered said matter and beg leave to follow. Recommend the council approve this reappointment.
Questions or comments? Question comes on the acceptance of the proposal and adoption of the order. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0 as well.
Order number 184A, the Committee on Legal Affairs, whom referred the matter regarding council order recommendation from the planning board relative to proposed zoning ordinance amendments regarding accessory dwelling units, definitions regarding transient lodging, bed and breakfasts, and other minor clarifications, has voted to set a public hearing on 11/20 at 7:30 PM.
Questions or comments? Councilor Bowen.
Yes, I'm just curious, given that there's a continuation from past discussions, if there's a time by which we have to set that public hearing, or if it's possible to set earlier?
It's a 14-day, it has to be in the paper for two consecutive weeks, but the first has to be 14 days out.
Thank you. Great question, Councilor Bowen. Yes. And for those who are wondering why it has to be that time span, what Ms. Kent is talking about is when it's a zoning ordinance change, it does require different legal notification than some of our other public hearings. So great question. Thank you. And thank you, Solicitor Williams. I saw you were at the ready to respond to that as well. So thank you for being here with us also.
I couldn't see her, so that's why I was like, oh.
No, you did fine. Are there other questions or comments on this one? I'd entertain a motion then to set that public hearing as proposed for November 20th at 7:30 PM.
So moved. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That carries 9-0 as well.
That's all I have for reports of committees.
All right. Under unfinished business from a previous meeting, I do want to just mention that we have Order 282 of 2022. That is the letter from Councilor Bowen regarding accessory dwelling units. That is the public hearing that we just set to look at the planning board's recommendations and some recommended revisions to Order 184, which is the proposal on ADUs, accessory dwelling units. As Counselor Bowen had asked, we'll keep that there as well till we resolve this conversation, we have a chance to finish this. And under unfinished business as well, right now is Order 184. That was the original version of the proposed accessory dwelling unit ordinance that we saw, that is also not yet completed. I think the only announcement that I wanted to make sure to highlight is that our next regular meeting, for folks following along, did just hear us at a public hearing, but it is a bit unusual, our upcoming meeting schedule, because of the election on November 7th and the clerk's office working really diligently to get ready for that. Our regular meeting would typically have been the day before. As is our habit, we've moved it to make all things possible. And so our next regular meeting will be October 30th at 7 p.m. Then, because of the Veterans Day holiday and City Hall calendar, our next meeting after that will be November 20th. So that accounts for the unusual regular meeting schedule for the public, but the next meeting will be October 30th at 7, with a public hearing at 7:30. Are there any other announcements or reminders? Superintendent, did I see your?
No, you didn't.
Okay. I just dreamt it. Yes, thank you. The ballots for the election are received, and so as we voted tonight, there'll be early in-person voting before the November 7th election, and also information on the clerk's portion of the city website about elections in general and about any questions that folks may have. Counselor Rand.
I did just want to, I said this during legal affairs, but I wanted to remind, thank you, Counselor Rotundo, remind people and counselors that the Legal Affairs Committee will be meeting at 6 p.m. on the same day as the council meetings to discuss ordinance review. So the public is welcome and counselors are welcome.
Thank you very much, Counselor Rand. And I think we heard this earlier in the meeting as well, but Counselors Rand and Husband, you have a Citizens Advisory Committee meeting for National Grid coming up.
We do.
On Thursday, is that
Thank
right?
you. That's right, Thursday at 5 p.m. in the Barnett Gallery at the main branch public library.
Thank you. Any other questions or reminders from counselors? All right. Well, with that, a big thanks again to particularly the folks who have been involved in that Citizens Advisory Committee for all the work they've been doing all along. Thanks to counselors for the conversation tonight about National Grid. We'll have another update from them and we'll continue regular check-ins. Thank you to Kim and the BevCam booth for being here with us, making sure that our meeting is streaming and accessible. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Carries 9-0 and we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone. No, did I?